Welcome, everybody. It's Aaron here with Robert, and welcome to Get Your Geek On's review of Obi-Wan Kenobi Episode 3, which just came out a couple of days ago. And I mean, what did you think? I mean, you're the Star Wars fan here out of the two of us.
Yeah, well, okay, full spoilers. We are going to be talking about the first 3 episodes of Kenobi, doing probably a little speculation for the back half of the show. So if you haven't watched it yet, thank you for listening and clicking and watching, and pause, go watch it, and then come back. I will say that while I did not like this episode as much as the first 2, I am still very much enjoying the show. I think if you look at 6 episodes, the first 2 episodes are the first act, the second 2 episodes are going to be the second act, and the last 2 episodes are the third act. That's kind of the structure of stories, is right. They're told in 3 acts. And usually the second act is kind of like the weakest act in terms of either action or intrigue or things like that. Like the first act is usually, hey, we're setting up a lot of stuff, and here's the big inciting event and everything. The second act is where our hero maybe gets defeated and has to recover and has to learn a lesson, and then in the third act they are triumphant, kind of thing, right? That's your standard story structure. And so I felt like the first 2 episodes did a really good job of setting up the series, setting up our characters, setting up motivation and all those things. This one did feel a little bit of a filler. There were still some really good moments in it.
Oh yeah.
But I think it slowed down a little bit from the first 2 episodes, just in terms of my enjoyment. But I'm still very excited for what the series is giving us. I have a couple criticisms, if you will, but I'm enjoying it. What about you?
I mean, I'm enjoying it. Again, I've said 100,000 times, I feel like anything that's not with like Luke and doing all that stuff, I really enjoy. I feel like, that's why I feel like I enjoy Mando.
I love that you're like, I don't like the Skywalkers.
And yeah, here's Layla.
Skywalker.
No.
Vader's a Skywalker. Shh.
I mean, he dies anyway, so it's okay.
Not until much later. He's in this show.
I mean, that's not wrong. Look, right now, all he's known is little Annie.
So yeah, no, you're talking about Luke.
Yeah.
Vader is not little Annie.
He's still little. He's giant. Now, not if he gets out of the armor. He's only like half a man.
Ooh, he is what Obi-Wan made him. There's that nice dialogue there. I mean, like, that's literally what he says. Like, what have you become? What you made me.
Yeah, I still enjoyed it. I love the first 2 episodes, like you said. I think this was a bit weaker for me and drew more questions for me. Because at first I watched it like 1.5 times. I didn't watch like a second time all the way through. I won't lie, because I was looking at one specific moment.
Okay.
And it was where he saw Anakin, though. He didn't see Vader in his head. He saw Anakin.
Correct.
And I was like,
in like that vision. Yeah.
Yeah. Now, and I was going to say, maybe, you can shed your 2 cents. I feel like it's PTSD that he's seeing. It's not like, I didn't know if Vader was like trying to feel him out, because I know Vader can like feel you through like way in space, right?
Yeah. But I mean, we've seen communication through space-time where, like that's kind of in the sequel trilogy. We saw those projections. We saw, Rey and Ben Solo communicating that way. And then spoiler alert for the end of Last Jedi, Luke Skywalker does that as well. Right. We had never really seen it. Certainly in this timeline, we hadn't seen it. But I agree with you that felt very much like, his past haunting him.
Yeah.
It was, like the knowledge that Anakin Skywalker is alive is bringing up and opening up those old wounds, that old trauma, that those types of things, and that was manifesting itself through this vision of Anakin. That's how I read it as well.
Okay, that's why I watched it that second time, because I was like, is it PTSD or is it that? And I kept getting PTSD feels, and I'm like, yeah, I feel like, and I like that we're not getting a strong Obi-Wan. We're getting defeated. I just want to live on a rock and not care about life anymore. I just care about Luke growing up, and maybe one day he'll change the world, maybe not. I also I don't want to be here. I want to go home. And that's kind of the feel you get throughout the first half of this episode.
Well, and we saw that even in, when Bail Organa was trying to convince him to, go save Leia, there is kind of that, where Bale even calls him out on it. He's like, you're not just hiding out because you're hiding from the Empire. You're also like wallowing in your shame and guilt. And, and yeah, you can see that, Obi-Wan Kenobi is a broken man at this point. His connection to the Force, is certainly at a weaker point than we've seen it in other material. He's, very reluctant to use the Force, which if you think of, how many times most of this is in the prequel trilogy, but we see it in A New Hope as well. He's very liberal use of the Force of, like Jedi mind tricks and that kind of stuff. And there are certainly scenarios where that would be useful, that he comes across, and he doesn't even attempt any of those things. Like, you can see that this is a man who has spent the last 10 years retreating from his connection to the Force, retreating from his past, and it shows.
Was it, now I don't know which episode it was or what movies it were, didn't he even comment that he didn't like using blasters, that he thought they were primitive, or was that one of the other ones?
Uncivilized?
Yeah, and here he is blowing everybody away with a blaster.
Yeah, I mean, I think that line doesn't always make a whole lot of sense. Okay, I mean, he says it to Luke in Episode 4 that like the Jedi, the lightsaber is a more sophisticated weapon for a more civilized time or something like that. But we see him use a blaster in the prequel trilogy too. Like, I think it's kind of,
a weapon's a weapon is a weapon. I can take somebody out of good.
Use what you have.
Yeah, I mean, I like that he's using it. I like, because for me, I guess it shows that he's versatile. And he doesn't want to use the Force, like you said. He's not using the Force to blast. He's using his own, intelligence, his own wisdom, his own dexterity to do this, especially shooting that trooper that's holding Leia. And he was like, putting it down, bam, and then shoots him. I'm like, yeah, you're a good shot with that thing. Now I do like that we're also seeing how, I guess, the reach of the Empire is, because if you don't play the games, you don't read the comics, you kind of don't. I feel like the movies don't really touch on it too much, because there's a lot more about the rebellion. I feel like that's huge, and in this one it's like, we can't trust anybody. Don't know who's this guy, and Leia's like, oh hi, I'm blah 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 blah. He's like, I don't trust Freck. I don't trust him.
I love her line of like, he seems nice. He's driving a transport like 300 feet away from you. You have no idea what. And she's just logic. Like, he seems nice.
But that's that kid logic.
Well, it's also that naivety of like, she's grown up in a protected environment on a planet that Alderaan hasn't really felt the weight of imperial oppression, because it is a political powerhouse, and so like they're not out there trying to crush Alderaan, because Alderaan would have a very loud voice about that. And so until they're ready to literally blow it to smithereens, and have the ultimate power in the universe, like they're not willing to directly antagonize a planet like Alderaan. So she, she doesn't really have the same hatred for the Empire you would see from other characters. Yeah. And because she's only 10, Bail Organa hasn't really started planting those seeds, because we know he's involved with the rebellion. He's part of the initial planting of those seeds and building up the rebellion, and so obviously he's going to bring her in to that at some point, but you don't get the feeling that he's done that yet. He's maybe laying the groundwork, but hasn't been explicit about it up to this point.
That's what I was going to ask you. So I remember, I mean, because I know we still have a few episodes left. Doesn't at some point Leia, make a comment whenever she's reaching out to Obi-Wan, like, help us like we've helped you or something like that? Or am I thinking something different?
No, in the original Star Wars, her message to Obi-Wan Kenobi, that's who she's reaching out to with R2-D2 with the recording, is, you once helped my father in the Clone Wars, now I need your help again, kind of thing.
So is it because this story wasn't planned? I mean, wouldn't she have, well, I guess why not mention this? Like,
it's definitely a, like, okay, that recording, it should reference that they have a relationship, you would think. Because it certainly seems like at that point, they don't have one, that they've never
Right.
met. And that's kind of how it's played by, Leia in the recording, by Obi-Wan, and even, later on when, because they never interact on the Death Star because Obi-Wan sacrifices himself. And so like Luke and Han save Leia, they get back to the ship, and so they never have an interaction on the ship. So there's never an explicit opportunity for them to talk about their past relationship, but it does make that moment feel a little weird. I'll grant you that. And it's kind of like, that's what I was alluding to last week when we did our review, where it was like, we're just gonna hand wave away, we're just gonna, like, don't worry about that.
Don't worry about those little nuances.
One of the things I wanted to call out is I really enjoyed is the entire sequence where Obi-Wan and Leia are on the back of the truck, and not only do they get to talk about both their histories and talking about like after the encounter with the stormtroopers, which I thought was really great as they kind of navigated that situation. And you see Leia's very quick on her feet, coming up with things. Obi-Wan has to chime in at one point, when he calls her Leia accidentally, and then they have to kind of recreate this scenario. But I love their, like where she's kind of like, you knew my mother, didn't you? And he won't confirm it. And then she says like, are you my father? And he, says, no, I'm not, like that kind of stuff. But I love that they're, just he's essentially an orphan as well. I mean, he was taken from his family at a very young age, as the Jedi did. I mean, they literally get indoctrinated into the Jedi Order. And so, I love that.
Starting to wonder the sides now.
It's the first time we've ever heard him talk about his past. It's certainly the first time we've ever heard a mention of a potential brother. I mean, I thought that was a really sweet moment between them. And obviously at some point they've now alluded to Padme twice. He initially says that she reminds him of someone that he knew. And now in this one, directly they're talking about her mother. Clearly they're going to have a conversation at some point where he's going to tell her about Padme. Which I think is hopefully going to be really sweet.
Later on, I want to ask too, does this become now you would know, does she know that Vader is their dad? Does she ever? So he should never in theory never comment that, hey, by the way, your dad is Vader. Okay.
That's not something that that she finds out until Return of the Jedi, when Luke reveals to her that they're brother and sister, and that Darth Vader is their father. That's when she discovers it. And actually that becomes an important plot point in some books that happen later, where that becomes public knowledge because it wasn't previously. And that becomes a problem for Leia, who is a politician, a general, a leader in the rebellion. And people are like, wait, your dad was Darth Vader, the evil dude? Like, and so like there's definitely aspects of that, like she knew, but the public doesn't know, and won't know until long after he's dead.
And so one other thing, because I want to touch on one other question, but that you might know, and then go into like that last part of the show, which I really did enjoy. So, I lost my question because I was going to, it'll probably come back to me. So the last part though, we got to see, and I don't know how I felt on it. We got to see Obi-Wan confront Vader.
Well, I would
kind of confront.
I would flip that. We saw Vader confront Obi-Wan. Obi-Wan has no interest in this fight.
No,
he's doing it. He's doing it to save Leia. I will distract them to save Leia, and I think he kind of is resigned to the fact that he's probably going to die, because here's a guy, 10 years. It's very clear he hasn't been using the Force. He hasn't been using his lightsaber. He's rusty. He's out of touch. Like, this is not. And you've got Darth Vader, who for 10 years has been leaving no survivors.
Right. He's been murdering people left and right.
And I love the way that he's portrayed, just walking through the village, and he just starts torturing. Like we saw earlier, in the series with the Inquisitors, where they were, torturing the community in order to get information.
Right.
And there was a lot of talking going on about that's what they were doing. Darth Vader just does it. He's like, I'm not like, I'm just gonna start choking people. I'm gonna snap someone's neck.
That
like,
poor
I'm
kid
just
was like, dead.
Yep. I mean, just brutal, obviously, and effective, because it does draw out Obi-Wan.
Now, did he sense Obi-Wan? Is that why he was also doing it? Because
I think they
Obi-Wan
both,
sensed him.
yeah, I think they both sensed each other. And that partially explains why Vader seems to keep showing up, wherever he is. It's amazing to me that someone that breathes like that can sneak up on anyone.
Right.
But he does it a couple times. I will say that the confrontation I thought was really interesting. That the mindset of Darth Vader, which is I don't want to just kill or capture Obi-Wan. I want to make him suffer, right? And you see that he's kind of when they're initially battling with the lightsaber, he's holding back. Like I get the sense he could have sliced Obi-Wan in half in an instant.
Right.
But he doesn't want to do that. He wants to torture him. He wants to put him in the fire and burn him alive. These types of things. So I thought that was really interesting. And ultimately, I think it was a mostly satisfying confrontation. Vader should be at this point with what they've set up should overwhelm him pretty easily, and I think he does. I don't like the fact that this pit of fire is what keeps him from catching Obi-Wan, because we haven't necessarily seen Darth Vader do it, but we've certainly seen Anakin leap over something that size very easily.
He's missing some parts, man.
He is, but I feel like he could levitate himself over that fire. Like it's not. And so that was kind of like I was like, okay, I understand that we need them. Like we don't want the show to end here.
Right.
But it also feels pretty weak. Like, why couldn't he just force choke the chick that was helping Obi-Wan? Like, he could just do that through the fire. Like, so I had problems with the way it ended and resolved, but, we're just going to move past it.
And one of the things, because I was like, man, if Vader's that harsh, stormtrooper, wham, go over there and just start throwing the stormtroopers at him. One of them is going to live, hopefully, and just shoot from the ground.
Yeah.
And of course they can't hit the broadside of a barn, even though they're right there. I can't see through fire. I can't see.
Yeah,
about that same spot, guys. Just shoot that same spot.
Stormtroopers can't hit anything. I mean, that's kind of their thing.
That's why I sent you that video. If you can give him 20/20 vision,
right?
The whole rebellion be out in like 20 seconds.
So I think by the end of this episode, again, we've got a very hurt and defeated Obi-Wan. Right. Who is, being assisted by this undercover Imperial officer. I really like that character. I thought that was really cool.
Now I know I was going to ask you for sure.
Yeah.
Who is the person they mention?
Quinlan Boss.
Yeah. Is that a name that like a non-Star Wars fan should know? Or is that something that's really only going to be for like the hardcore people?
Yeah. I mean, he has an arc in the Clone Wars series. He's a Jedi, one that Obi-Wan knew pretty well. And so he does have an arc in the Clone Wars. I think he gets a mention in one of the live action series. He's also a major character in one of the Star Wars books. And I mean, I think that in that moment, Obi-Wan is, finding out basically that he survived Order 66. And so that was pretty cool to see that. But no, he's not a major character that most people would know. I do really I think the book that he's, I can't remember the name of it now, but it's a book that centers around him and Asajj Ventress, who was Count Dooku's apprentice. And so it's actually a really good book. I've read that one and I really liked it. So.
Oh, nice. I have to maybe one day check those ones out. I have so many books to read already. So, like you said, speculation. So where do you think this is going to go? We obviously have to get one more fight, a bare minimum, with Vader, because if we want to try to keep that line true from the movies, and I mean, let's face it, I don't know what's going to turn Obi-Wan into like, I'm back connected with the Force. I'm a badass again. I'm ready to fight. Yeah. I don't know what's going to be that catalyst though.
Well, I mean, obviously, where this episode ends, Leia has been recaptured.
Right.
The third sister has her. And Obi-Wan is off to recover. And I think it's going to be during that recovery that he reestablishes his connection either to Qui-Gon, who he's been trying to reach, several times in this series, maybe Yoda could show up in some sort of Force conversation. The two of them could have a conversation, and I think that he will reestablish that faith and connection in the Force. I think this was laying the seeds for that. Him seeing that there's an entire resistance, that the seeds of the rebellion exist, that people are trying to fight back, that there are other Jedi who survived Order 66. Like, I think all of these things are starting to reestablish his faith in potentially overthrowing the Empire. And so I think it's been building to that. I think that we will see that ultimately. In terms of story, I don't know where it's going to go. I agree with you. We are going to see another confrontation between Obi-Wan and Vader, where Obi-Wan will obviously they'll both survive again. I anticipate Obi-Wan having kind of the upper hand in that confrontation, in that final confrontation, that he's going to, not just escape, but, kind of win the fight, if you will. And, how that's going to work out, I don't know. Based on where other material, where we've seen Inquisitors, I'm not sure that I expect Third Sister to survive. Although I have also seen some people speculating that maybe she'll even turn into a good guy. Ooh. I don't know about that. I'm expecting that we're going to get a lot more of her motivation in these next couple of episodes, and understanding why it is that she's so driven, why she hates the Jedi, and particularly Kenobi, so much. I really hope we get that, because I feel like of all of the characters and their motivations, she's the one that I feel like has been the least fleshed out. And I do want to take a moment to just talk real quickly about Moses Ingram, because the actress has been the subject of some really terrible and awful messages that have been directed at her. And no matter whether you think she's great or terrible in the show, whether you think she's a great actress or a terrible actress, I don't care. You're allowed to have that opinion about anything. It's never okay to be racist. It's never okay to, be terrible to someone. No. It doesn't matter how talented or not talented they are. You still cannot be racist to them. Exactly. And so I just want to call that out. I appreciate the way that her co-stars, Ewan McGregor, Kumail Nanjiani, I've seen specifically have come out and supported her. I'm sure that there's been others. And, I definitely agree with them as well. And I would just say that, racism should have no place in our society. It obviously does, but, it should not. And so if you are one of those people, it's okay to criticize something without making it about race. So please don't do that.
Exactly. So I don't know where it's going to go either, though. I mean, kind of shifting back, a little bit more serious on this subject versus the other serious side of it.
Shifting back to the fantasy series.
Yes, go back to fantasy
rather
series. That's what I want.
Because that's what we want. We want to escape.
We also don't want to hear me rant about Halo, and we're gonna have to do that soon. I will. Here's what I want, and then like I said, I think the seeds are being laid down for him to come around. It would be cool to see this other Jedi come out in the show. Maybe we know he's alive. What I would hope happens, and I don't know if it will, is Qui-Gon Jinn comes back somehow. Whether it's just his voice, if he actually sees him, I hope he gives him and not even a whole speech. Maybe it's just a couple of lines that he needs to hear. That's like, oh crap, my master is talking to me, and it'll be okay.
Yeah, and it certainly seems like they're planting the seeds for him to talk with Qui-Gon at some point during the series, and he has shown up in it. I can't remember. He showed up in the show Rebels, and I don't remember if he if I know he talked to a few of the characters. I can't remember if Kenobi was one of them, because he was really small in that show. Kenobi was he barely was in that show at all. I don't think he had any direct contact with Qui-Gon. But they've established that Qui-Gon is a Force ghost and could show up. So yeah, I would love for him to establish that connection.
His voice, even if Liam Neeson's I'll just voice act for a second.
And I think they have established that they're building towards that. That's what it seems like to me.
I think it'll be that, and hopefully that'll push it off. But we'll see where it goes. I'm excited. We got 3 more episodes left, bare minimum. I mean, you said that Ian McGregor made a comment 7910.
Yeah, Ewan McGregor at Star Wars Celebration got people very excited that there might be more than 6 episodes. I don't think that's the case.
I don't think so. I think he's just messing with everybody.
But yeah, I mean, if there are, I'm not going to complain.
No, I'm enjoying it. I mean, again, we both know I'm not the hardcore fan, and so this is a show that was geared towards someone like me who's like, I just want to enjoy a show, you know, and yeah. I'm enjoying where it's going to go. It still has me intrigued enough to be like, okay, where is this story going to end? And you know, I'd be happy though if they just do one season. I don't know if I want more, because I want it to kind of end where, you know, a few years later it's going to be the movies. I don't know if I want all his other side stories.
I mean, honestly, I think that depending on where this story leaves off, you know, what story are you going to tell in the next one? Like, you can't keep telling stories with him and Leia, because then it's going to get really weird that she doesn't mention her personal connection with him, where it's already just a little weird. You can't have him going off on adventures with Luke, because we already know that Luke, you know, kind of knows who he is, but, you know, they don't really have a relationship.
Right. And I don't think Owen would even allow that. Owen would probably try to stand in the way too.
Definitely not. We can't keep having him fight Vader every 6 months. You know, like that, it's going to just lose all weight.
For the last time, for the 16th time.
Right. When he's like, you know, we meet again, you know, and you're like, yeah, okay, I could do this all day, Captain America. Like, what are we doing here? So yeah, I feel like this is the last.
This is it. This has to be it.
But you know, I mean, we've felt that about things before, and Disney and other media companies are nothing if not wanting to make a profit. So if they decide that there is another story that they want to tell with Ewan McGregor as Obi-Wan Kenobi, you know, they'll make it and fans will come watch it, because that's what we do. Exactly. We watch it. We don't even like Boba Fett, but we watch it.
Hey, Mando 2.5. Thank you very much. That's the new name.
Only
of that
for like
season.
3 episodes. The other 4 episodes were just bad.
There's other episodes. So on that note, guys,
go check out our review of that if you want my full thoughts.
Go check it out. But on that note, guys, we'll go ahead and end it here. Don't forget to check out all of our stuff at official GYGO on TikTok, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, all those good stuff, and YouTube. And of course, don't forget to check out all the podcasts and everything else. And on that note, we'll see you next week when we do episode 4. I'm Aaron. That's Robert's that way. Whatever.
I'm over here.
So y'all have a great one. Stay geeky, and we'll get your geek on.
Bye.